Hello everyone, my name is Karina and this is my presentation on realism. So realism is the idea that reality exists independently of humanity's thoughts, language, and observations. In other words, matter is separate from the mind. Realism really focuses on observable facts, concrete facts that can only be observed through the senses. And then each new observation brings the observer closer to understanding reality and the laws of nature and the natural world. When I was researching realism, it really I really found that it's easiest to understand realism in the context that it is the opposite of idealism. So when we think of realism and idealism, think about a tree on a deserted island. No one knows where that tree, like no one can observe that tree with their own eyes. So the idealist would say that the tree only exists if it is in some mind, if someone is thinking about it. Whereas the realist says that that tree exists whether someone is thinking about that tree or not. Um, so therefore, matter to the realist, matter is independent of the mind. So some of the basic history about realism. Aristotle developed the idea of realism. He was influenced by Plato's theories, but he merged them into what we know as realism today. So Aristotle emphasized the importance of studying material objects in order to understand the universe. And one subject that we'll keep talking about as we go through this presentation is science. And so science really uses many science and realism are very connected. And so in the modern world, Francis Bacon and John Locke brought the theory of realism. Two examples of this are Bacon's scientific method, which we all learned through high school and college, and it's a staple for the scientific community today. And then Locke's theory that the human mind is empty at birth and then influenced by the environment over time. So this idea that our observations influence our mind and shape us and our environment. So I have three key principles of realism. So the first key principle is truth through observation. So realists do not put a lot of weight in truth as an observable fact, and that humanity gains knowledge about the world using sensory perception. So realists learn about the world through the observation, taking facts at face value without placing personal biases on information. And personal biases is key. The goal of the realist is to observe the world as it is without any preconceived biases or anything that could hinder or change that view. In the realist mind, the physical world is natural world is the truth, is the only real basis for which we should be getting our basic information and the laws that should govern our society. So there's also an emphasis on observation through the senses, through hands-on experience. And then the second principle is reality. So the physical world is what makes up reality. So not anything beyond the physical world, like the mind or your imagination, or so anything beyond the physical is not true reality. So the world operates according to the laws of nature, and the universe is old, it is permanent, it will continue to operate regardless of any knowledge that humanity may obtain between now and 100 years from now. It does not matter because the laws of nature will remain the same and constant, and the world will continue. The world will continue to turn. We think of the laws of gravity. So yes, it will continue to operate. And then the third key principle is the natural world. So the realists believe that nature has a moral law, And then through the study of nature and the natural world, humanity can understand the laws and values that should govern society. So we think of the law of gravity, that um, is one such law that is unchangeable, is the law of nature. Then also the laws of nature are permanent, they are unchanging, as I just mentioned a bit earlier. And then the criteria for beauty can also be found in nature. So the realist believes that any laws that should be part of society, whether for beauty, for governance, for the moral code, it can be found by observing nature in action. And so, for example, when it comes to beauty, the according to the realist, the most beautiful artwork will be the one that is the most logical and ordered, because nature is ordered and is not chaotic. Everything operates within the laws that have been placed. So, what does this mean for education? So, the educational impact. So, what realism in an educational setting? So, to the realist, the students. They must be reinforced. They must be shaped and disciplined into proper behavior. There's an element of behaviorism in that. Students, they come into contact with reality and knowledge of the world through their senses. So it is of paramount importance in education for the realist that students are constantly learning through their senses, and there's not as much emphasis on critical thinking or the mind. It's all on what they see, hear, smell, touch, and what knowledge they're going to gain from that. And then for teachers, the teachers to the in the theory of realism in education, teachers are the more sophisticated observers. So they have observed for longer. They already understand the rules of the natural world, and their task is then to pass it on to their students quickly and efficiently, with an emphasis on not revealing their own biases and personality. Just straight scientific fact is the basis of a realist education. So students are supposed to observe the world themselves without any preconceived ideas or biases. And their goal is the teacher's goal to the student is mastery. They want their students to master the facts and to learn the laws of nature. Then, when it comes to curriculum, the realist curriculum focuses on experience and observation of the ordered world. That is the basic principle of realism, is just observation of the natural world. So there's a heavy emphasis on the sciences, and which, in order to understand the laws of nature, the whole goal of realism is to understand the laws of the natural world. And there's also an emphasis on mathematics, because that is how you describe the laws of the universe. So the realist education to believe that truth is gained through the senses. Therefore, the learning process should use as many of the senses as possible. So symbolic knowledge books, they are means for communicating knowledge about the natural world, but they're not the most important. What is the most important is physical object lessons, field trips, demonstrations, visual aids, anything that allows students to observe and experience the world, the universe in action. And then education, the curriculum usually teaches for the mastery of proven facts. The goal is for students to understand, like I said, the natural law, the laws of the universe. So the advantages of the realism in education, there's an emphasis on practical skills that can be directly applied to real world settings. There's emphasis on the practical, hands-on learning and experience. So a huge part of the realist education today is vocational training, internships, things that are applicable and that students will use throughout their life. And then there's a focus on science and technology, which is hugely helpful today, especially in the modern world, as we're getting deeper into technology. So a few criticisms or disadvantages of realism: it can neglect the development of critical thinking. It can also undervalue the arts and humanities, of course, because there's that emphasis on the what is observable and proven fact. And of course, humanities is not always like that. So it's very much more mind based, more idealism, idealist theory. So of course, that with a focus on sciences, it can undervalue the arts and humanities, and it can also lead to a standardized, non-differentiated curriculum, because the whole focus is on mastery of proven fact, and that can lead to curriculum that is just all about mastery and not differentiated for student learning needs. So, in conclusion, realism is a philosophical theory that focuses on the importance of experience and the observation of the natural world in order to understand the laws of the universe. Realist educators focus on student learning through sensory perception, preferring to use hands on activities and visual aids to aid learning. And then teachers focus on helping students master facts and understand the laws of natural world, and education should have a practical application, and students should be able to apply their knowledge to real world situations. So that is realism in a nutshell, and thank you for listening.